the streaming service that you're using is different. I've used Restream and I've used StreamYard, and just primarily those two. And so this one looks nice. I like it. I like the setup.
It's
Obviously, much wider.
it's very nice. I like they have night mode to it, so you
Hmm.
can make it all dark. So I'm not having to worry about like my monitors casting some hue or like affecting my lighting.
That's nice. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it
I know. Well, for me, it's too far. I have. Well, I take that back. The camera setup is in center, but I have a monitor, and then another monitor, but none of them are in front of me. So even if it does cast, it never reflects back to you. It reflects away. So it should. I try to make it so that it doesn't have too much of an effect on the glasses, unless I do up, and then you can see the ring lights.
Well, this is episode 8 of Behind the Minds, where we get to know some of our favorite creators and people on a more intellectual and kind of personal perspective, developing that connection, that trust that we just kind of openly give when we click on a video and watch somebody and, we're being entertained, we're being informed, and we just have this kind of interesting aspect of just openly trusting somebody that we only maybe know from watching their content or if you find somebody the first time. So the idea of, just kind of digging behind the mind of what makes this person, I guess, unique. Um,
Hmm?
and that's kind of what this is about. So our guest this week is the one and only TK Bay. How are you?
I'm I'm doing good. It's it's a it's a long it's one of those long weeks. So it's Thursday, but it just feels like it's already ready for the weekend. But it's always nice to see you, and always nice to when we see you in the chat, and of course being here on the show. Thank you for having me.
And I see that you got to cover these lovely joints here.
Hopefully. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The VR, the P10s. Exactly.
So,
Yeah, I've been playing with them for some time.
uh, so yeah, I had a first experience with this. I've actually been using these for about 3 months now. So,
Oh wow. Okay, you got them way earlier than me then, because I got them. I bought
y-
them maybe 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks or so ago. So I took them with me on my last trip.
yeah, Soundcore had beta program, and I was
Mm.
fortunate enough to get included in being in their testing
Oh,
with that.
I got
And
invited to that and I
I
didn't respond in
had
time. Yeah,
to
yeah.
I had to be very hush hush, and I was like, every time I go to be on a live stream, make sure I pull them out of my ears because NDA stuff, you don't want to get.
Oh yeah, no, no. And not only that, these actually stick out pretty. It's hard to confuse them because they have lights. So you have those RGB lights on there, and it makes them very unique. The look is hard. Like people would have
They
questioned it. You're right. Yep.
they remind me a little bit of the edifiers that have the three hash lines on them,
Yeah.
but those are more
Yeah.
squared off
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit more. Yeah. But
and
they're
don't
good.
have the same case. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you like? I think it's very clever how they place the little dongle in the top there. Although
Yeah.
if you have fingers that are not like if you have wide fingers, it's a little bit of an interesting
It's a
feat.
challenge. Yeah, yeah. I found that if I just so for me, what I do is I bend it down. I go in, I push in on from one side so like it turns, and then I kind of almost do like a more of a scooping situation because it gets a little bit harder. Uh, but rarely do I even put them back in there. That's the other thing for me because they included an extra. Now you typically don't get an extra adapter, but they gave me two dongles, so I always had one dongle in the Steam Deck, and I left it in the Steam Deck because that's what I always use it for. And then for the other ones, I just switch it around from different devices. But it's an ingenious way of doing it, connecting it over Wi-Fi over as opposed to Bluetooth for low latency. Right? That's a good one. I mean, it's kind of going back into technology. We used to do this back in the day, and this actually does it works pretty well. I like them.
It made me think about, we have the different Wi-Fi bands
Yeah.
for, your home internet with and like your devices connecting and you can have like local network access to your drives and stuff. And it
Hmm.
makes me wonder if we're gonna kind of like you said it's sort of backwards. Do you think
A
that
little
we'll
bit, yeah.
see where a company like Apple who's all in on, the wireless stuff will create some sort of like I could see their airport, like an airport ultra or like airport audio edition or something, where
Hmm.
the idea is if you want to get lossless, you use there, and then all of like your music can stream through it, whether it's like to your device or like I guess on your device you just pick and it kind of streams through that. Do you think that we'll see where they kind of do this going back to that route of things to really help with that latency and
I,
audio
I
quality or
I'm not sure if Apple would take us into. So if anything else, I think Apple wants you to depend on Apple Music right now. So that's the biggest thing for them. The way the airports used to work with localized, access drive, I think we have so many other options available right now, like Plex servers and so on. It would be, I mean, it would benefit Apple for us to buy more hardware from them, but it's a little bit, um, it's an interesting approach. I probably would say I don't think Apple would be one company that try to go backwards in technology. Soundcore is leveraging what most of us are doing now is jumping off 2.4 gigahertz into 5 gigahertz, and then of course you have 6 gigahertz with Wi-Fi 6E and so on. So what you're doing is that they're noticing a lot of people are leaving the lower spectrum, the older spectrum, the slower spectrum, is opening up. It's not as congested as it used to be. So that's where the leverage goes on. And I feel like Apple would probably want to shift more into Wi-Fi 6E, faster connection, where it's still somewhat less congested than 5 gigahertz, which is what I think most of us are in. So it's possible. I wouldn't push it beyond them, but I feel like they would probably move forward into maybe another piece of hardware that we probably would need to pick up and maybe give us the ability of utilizing that for local storage, to stream music
something
off your own.
something along the lines of I have the RS. It's the 7800 Max. It's there, like it's really overkill for a 540 square foot apartment, but
Hmm.
it's because we have like older material in the wall.
Hmm.
I can't get away with just a single it like just going from our living room through like the bathroom into the bedroom.
Yeah, yeah.
I go from 900, I got 940 down and 40 up to like 100 down. My
Oh,
upload
wow.
stays about the same, but it's the download that drastically gets killed.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a mesh network and it's pretty much overkill for this. I mean, it can do up to like 6,500 square feet or something like that, so it's way large. But they use that third channel, it's like 160 megahertz
Hmm.
to communicate to each other. I think audio, we could see that's kind of what they're doing with this is it's the frequencies that are like you said they're starting to be moved up. I don't know, one of my favorite features though too was how when you're charging your earbuds and you plug them in and they have that really tiny LED and you can barely tell that they're charging or it's on like a
Exactly.
weird position, or like if they're wireless charging compatible, you set it on the wireless charger but it's like also on the back side so you can't see
Yeah, yeah.
the
It's
fact
in
that
a
it
weird
has
spot.
that
You have to kind of, yeah.
big old um light on the front, which
Yeah, that purple, that consistent purple light. I like I said, this is it's feeding into the gaming experience. So if you like RGBs, if you like LEDs, like typically for me, my desk is like light up with LEDs and RGBs. My PC is sitting on the side, which it's not lit up right now, but if it's lit up, it's all colorful RGBs and colors. So for me, it feeds into that. It's a gamer's. I mean, let's say this. It's a true wireless solution for gamers. Every other company strives to get close to under 30 milliseconds. I mean, that's ridiculously low. When we say under 30 milliseconds, we're talking like almost like realistic, at almost like real time type of an experience. And for me, I like the fact that they're able to get it, but they're also staying true to the gamers, giving you the ability of customizing the colors. Although I wish they let us change the color on the case. That would have been my only thing because you change
that
the
would have
color
been
on the
cool to
bus.
match.
Yeah, yeah. At least get everything running at the same level. That would have been my only thing. But yeah, it's nice. I like the customization, and you can actually use as many dongles as you want. Switch over between one after or another from the app. So I like it. It's nice.
Oh
It's
yeah, because
expandable.
that's the other thing because they have that kind of like it's not like multi-point through Bluetooth in that way, but it's like you can have connected via Bluetooth and the dongle that you can
Yep.
just switch in there, and then even like the updating to the dongle, when they had well, okay, so when I was doing the testing, there was a time where one of the updates was literally just for the dongle. So you had to
Ah.
like plug in your dongle, and I just plugged it into my MacBook and
Okay.
then just connected. But it was nice because it was updating the dongle and I could still use the earbuds because it's just the dongle
It's on.
part
Yeah.
that's
The
being
dongle is on 2.4, and the Bluetooth works. And I think it's a smart way of doing it. You're leveraging both technologies. But I also love the fact that if you have, let's say, two dongles and Bluetooth, although it does multi-point with one and one, so one Bluetooth, one dongle, you're able to switch between the dongles in the app. The system allows it starts showing you all the separate dongles that you have, and you can actually go in and switch, let's say, from the Steam Deck to your PC, and then your phone still connects to it. So it really leverages the connectivity options and allows you to keep going. So that's what I really like about it, and it works with the if you have a Quest 2. It was actually certified for the Quest 2 from Meta. Unfortunately, I don't have a Quest 2. I couldn't test it there.
That's
My
what
first generation didn't work. Yeah.
I tested them with that, and one of the interesting things that came to mind with that, and so I wasn't I used them like every day for so long, but I hadn't used them in the last like week or so, and I was
Hmm.
like, because I was just testing some other stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna test these out because I know that there's a firmware update, and they were just launched. And one of the things that was interesting is they added a it it was like a that mode. So there's the gamer mode, and then there's the other mode that's in there that's supposed to help you like hear footsteps
Uh,
better in like the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
games and stuff.
It's like
And that was
amplified
something that
hearing or
wasn't
super hearing is
there
what they called it. Yeah.
until that's something that wasn't there until the like 11.56 update,
Hmm.
interestingly enough. Um, but one of the things that I was thinking, and I need to give them my feedback on this, is I would like to, and I know it would make it more expensive, but I would like to see a version that has a transparency mode only because I deal with anxiety.
Hmm.
And so trying to game with a VR headset alone and then you put in earbuds that like close you off even more,
Yeah, yeah. No, no, sure.
it
Yeah.
did this weird panic attack thing, and I had never had that happen just wearing but that's how good the audio is. And like for me, one of the things that, and I don't know like how you feel, like I feel like the bass on these is good.
Mm.
Like sometimes with true wireless earbuds, it can be too much. Like the Liberty 3 Pros, I have to turn down a little bit
A little
because
bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
those are pretty bass. But I felt like with this, I could just kind of leave it at like a flat EQ, almost at what it was, and it was pretty good. Although the voice enhance
Hmm.
EQ is incredible with these. So when I'm um, one of the things that I like with that dongle is I can connect that up, and then I can have my phone connected. And if I'm editing away, my wife calls, I can just switch over to the call
Yep,
and keep
exactly.
going. And
Yeah,
with
yeah,
that low latency for editing, I wouldn't want to use it for like audio fidelity and like some of that. But if I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
trying to place things in align audio with
Hmm.
editing, that's another thing that they don't just
Yeah.
have to be focused on gamers. And I think for the price point,
Hmm.
um, I
Well,
think they matched
$80 right now with that coupon that they give out.
a lot of the features are matched. Like volume control. Like something as simple as volume control on the earbuds, where you can assign volume control, play
Hmm. With a single
pause,
tap.
skip a
Yep.
track, forward, backwards, voice assistant, going in and out of the gaming mode, and then like
Hmm.
they gave you all pretty much all the features you could ask for. And it's crazy to me because that was something that was added, if I remember correctly, that was something that was added with a firmware update. I
Yeah.
think on the Liberty 2s and 2 Pros. If I
I
remember
know the
correctly,
two pros got it
when I
later.
had
Yeah.
the yeah, when I had
Hmm.
my Liberty 2s, because I didn't have the Pros with those, that they added it. And so it's cool to see that like they're just coming out the gate. But that's the advantage, they make all these and they get the feedback and they're like, we're just gonna throw all these features right in there. Um, but I don't know, I've been pretty impressed. And battery life, um,
Which is actually pretty
like
good.
I know their
Yeah.
claimed battery life, but
Hmm.
I'll get anywhere from like 50% to sometimes double what they would claim.
Oh,
Like when I'm just
okay.
watching a live stream, I had one time I was looking at, I was like, wow, it only used like 20%. And it was
Hmm.
like a multiple hour live stream. And I was just surprised because they're claimed versus, but then again, it's not like if you're not running it cranked. And that was
I
the
was
other
about to
thing.
say, yeah, it depends on what you're
The,
running and the EQ level that you're setting it up to. For me, I always like to have. I do turn up the bass. I did turn up the bass on this one. I noticed that when you have active noise cancellation on the buds, typically you don't need to go as high with the bass because it's not trying to drown out the outside noise for and so for me, I actually got about 4.5, 5 hours roughly, depending on if I was just listening to music or gaming. but still, it's pretty long duration if you think about it. And like
Yeah.
a session of gaming, it's roughly about an hour and a half. So I never run out of time. It's always good.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about using with like a Steam Deck and some of these, I mean, an
Hmm.
hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, your Steam Deck's dead.
That's I was
Like
gonna say. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
usually,
no, it
like,
was
you
exactly
get it. So
on
you can
on the
you
flight back
could
from Germany.
charge
That's how it
your,
was.
you could then switch over to your phone and play for a couple hours, and your Steam Deck would probably be charged back up, and then
And the buds are 100%, and then you're
and
ready to go again.
and your buds are 100%, you're
Yeah, yeah.
good to go.
That's
And
exactly how I was doing it on the plane. I would play till the Steam Deck needed to be charged. Then I'd plug the Steam Deck, put the buds back in, do something else, come back, and then it was ready to go. But and overall, like I said, it's literally what we want from most buds. We want them to have as good of an audio experience as if you were connected, like a regular USB-C cable earbuds. Not obviously not the best quality, but I'm talking about like just overall good sounding experience, mids and highs, a little extra bass if you want, app control, functionality, customizations, and then the best thing about it is the low latency, and the ease of plug and play. You literally, as long as your system supports audio over USB-C, you're set to go. I didn't think about doing what you did though. I didn't edit videos with them on my desktop PC. I did edit them on my laptop because on my PC, unfortunately, on my desktop, I don't have USB-C ports. It's still all USB-A. So and I couldn't find the adapter that would fit it correctly, but it still worked, and it works great. Even my PlayStation 5 when I'm playing Horizon, so it was really nice.
I'll have to see. Okay, so Periodic Audio,
Hmm.
Dan from there sent me a bunch of dongles to try out for them
Yeah, yeah.
so that they could recommend which one they could recommend to users when users wanted to use their amp,
Hmm.
but needed to use that and convert. So it's Lightning to USB-C. So, all the iPhone users that wanted to.
Yeah, yeah.
But through that, one of the methods is it's it's Lightning to USB and then USB to USB-C.
Oh, okay.
And
That's two two dongles there. Okay, or two
I
converters.
discovered one dongle that was just Lightning straight to USB-C that was really good. That was the best. It didn't get warm. It kept like the audio quality. It didn't kill your battery. Like there was
Hmm.
some significant. And then I discovered one, and I'll have to figure out what the brands are because they just all come in, plastic, nondescript,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. They're just
bag.
they're sending you samples to test. That's good.
And But I mean, they were from companies like that you
Hmm.
could get on like eBay and Amazon and stuff. So I'll be curious to. I'll have to look and see the ones I found, and I'll try to do that and let you know the the regular USB to USB-C that I found that was good for that because that would be an interesting. Because obviously, as long as your computer can push audio, which
It
I
should.
mean they can,
Yeah, yeah.
because if
There's
you're
no reason
using
it
any
wouldn't.
audio interface, it has to be able to support some sort of audio
Oh yeah,
over
Windows
USB-C.
11, Windows 10 shouldn't have any problem, and it literally is a plug and play. It was more I just didn't have any USB-Cs. That's it's just not to say like desktops typically don't. It just I think if there is one on my system, it's in the back of my system, and I can't really just go all the way to the back there because my desk and everything. So for simplicity of use, I use it on my laptop. It's much easier. And when I was traveling, like I said, for editing video, I don't have to worry about wires or anything like that. But it's good. I
Yeah.
like the solution, and I'm glad you've had access and some input into the software and our usability of what we do with them. It's nice.
And pricing, actually. They
Oh,
asked
good.
us about pricing.
Yeah, yeah.
So there
The
are some
pricing was good.
questions about like pricing range.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because it's a really intellectual like thing with pricing because if you go too low, people won't trust, will be like, oh, it must be cheap.
Yeah.
And if you go too high, then people want certain features like they want the whole like ANC and transparency and like full on. They don't want passive noise
I,
cancellation, and they want all these additional features, and they want extra battery life, and then you're also starting to get too close to like their pro line.
well, yeah, the Liberty. Well,
um
they released it along the
so
time with the Liberty Fours. So there's we don't have
so
the Pros yet, but the Four is
no,
also pretty
but the
close.
fours, so they have that, which I didn't know they were doing.
Hmm.
So I just knew about these. But
Oh, I got the Four literally about a week ago, way after I've had these guys. So I didn't finish the video on that one, and I told them I says like we'll work on this one since the deadline for that one was this week, and I'll try to push out the Liberty Fours hopefully next week. So it should be
The
good.
the the other real cool use for it for me as somebody who dual carries, I carry an iPhone and an Android device, was
Hmm.
I plugged the dongle into my Fold.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it should work perfectly.
And then it didn't, and then it could just use either one. And so whatever device I'm on, it was literally just a matter of picking it up and using it. And there wasn't like there wasn't the switching. So it's better than having to like go into your settings and switch, or like even multi-point sometimes will have that delay because they're both simultaneously connected.
Yeah,
I could
it's
just
it's
go in
looking to
and
see which one is sending the signal and
it
prioritizing
was
that. But this one actually runs both together. It doesn't kill the other signal. It just lowers the volume a little bit. So
yeah,
it's not that bad.
it was fun. The one thing, and they said that future they couldn't do it with this one, but they're looking into it. In a future, it would be showing battery when you're
Hmm.
using the dongle, because when you're using the dongle and you connect to like your computer, you don't get your battery percentage. You do over the Bluetooth connection,
Hmm.
computer, like when you're on a Windows machine or like connected to an
Oh yeah,
iPhone
yeah.
or Android, it'll tell you right in your settings like the percentage remaining. Well, when you
Hmm.
connect the dongle, they're working on some way, whether it's like, you know, on a PC side, they could have software that would tell that, but
Hmm.
they want to make it where it just straight up utilizes the built-in, and that's a hardware thing that they're.
It is, yeah, yeah. To be able to get the signal and then basically show us a light showing what the percentage, if it's basically fully charged, yeah, medium or maybe low, ready to charge. You're right, but they do have that LED on the case itself, so it's a little bit easier there as well. Even though the case itself will tell you how much percentage battery is left, when you first set them up, you're right. On the smartphone, you should still be able to see it. It's just on the other side you can't.
Yeah,
The
it's
Bluetooth
interesting to me.
connectivity send it. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean,
It's something I didn't think about until I was using them. I was like, but if I plug this dongle into my MacBook, which allows it to connect like instantly,
hmm.
and if you have a device where sometimes I noticed that there are some times where I didn't want Bluetooth
Hmm.
on like my computer because of you can have interference, but just
Hmm.
plugging that in, you don't have to worry about it. And I suspect even like on a plane, there would be times where like you could use that, but you might not want Bluetooth because there's a bunch of people with Bluetooth devices around, or
Oh
like
yeah, everybody has
interference
Bluetooth on the
stuff.
plane. Yeah, yeah, or even
Although
show floors or anything like that. Conventions are the worst because you're getting bombarded with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So you're gonna have to figure out what works in the area that you're in. But yeah, for the most part, there will be interference. You're right. Bluetooth can get pretty congested.
I was even thinking the cool aspect of, because it's a dongle like that,
Hmm.
you could just carry it around, and if somebody is like, "Hey, I want to show you this video or have you listen to it," as long as, well, I guess if you had an adapter, you could do that with an iPhone too. But like, if they're running any Android device, you could just plug it into their phone temporarily, you get your audio, and unplug it when you're done, and go on and there's no pairing to their Bluetooth.
No,
Some
yeah,
things like
exactly.
that, like situations that, um,
It,
that
it's
are
it's
unique to having
it's very
that.
unique. Yeah, exactly. The possibilities are almost endless, and I know they were kind of gearing it towards, made for Meta, but I feel like the solution, the application of these earbuds is almost limitless. It's limited only by your imagination, and the fact that it supports both wireless, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. I think that like you said, you could do different options, and it works with almost every system that you can. I just my only thing would be again customizing the color on the case to match the RGBs because when you change it, the buds change, but the actual case stays purple. That little button, although it's not a button, it's just there for a light.
My video I'm going to be recording and putting up tomorrow, and there's some things that I noticed that um I don't know, like, for example,
Hmm.
and this will fascinate you, is you know how the Quest, they have the accessories you can get that are like the battery add-ons
Yeah.
and like the additional to like make it wider, and they have like
Hmm.
all the different, is some third-party ones you can't use the earbuds with, because the way it connects,
Hmm. It takes
these
over the
have to
USB-C.
support it like doesn't provide the power back to these.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah,
only
yeah.
like one way, so you have to have ones that have like pass through power, but also provide it back. So it
Hmm.
can't just be like ones where you can plug your power cable in and it will charge those or still charge your Quest or
You
allow
need
like
data
video
transfer as
out. It
well.
has to allow the actual charge back as well. So it, obviously they're first party ones and then most of the third party ones, but some of the more inexpensive ones have that limiter on there. Like it's weird because they'll support everything else, like video pass through,
Hmm.
charging pass through, but it's like the back going out from them, it doesn't
Yeah.
support as much. So I just thought that
No.
was an interesting. And did you do any testing as far as like battery life, Bluetooth versus like using just the dongle and using both and stuff? Because that's one thing I
I
didn't
had
think to
I had
check.
them running on both all the time. So I never ran them one or the other because I always had like so the Bluetooth to my smartphone, so like the Xperia, I was having it always connected, so it was always running on both. The only time I disconnected them is when I wanted to just truly test the audio on because my Xperia had it paired over Bluetooth. Every time, even if I plugged in the dongle, the audio prioritized over the Bluetooth over the dongle option. So I would have to turn off Bluetooth just to get it in there. So that audio clip that I put in my video, I had to turn off Bluetooth to do that. But otherwise, I was getting about 5 hours, five and a little bit over five with both connections running
Okay.
to a device and the dongle. I never needed to separate them.
So
But yeah.
so that's good to know. So that
Mhm.
only so so from my testing, worst case scenario, it sounds like it has maybe it like an hour reduced
Mhm.
versus if you're just single to like just USB and depending on what you're doing. But like when I had them plugged in, I was watching live streams and they're cranked like up there pretty high, 80, 90%. Because when I first was doing them, they were kind of on the quiet end. There was actually some firmware that was pushed out that made them louder, which obviously that helps battery life because if they aren't having to um,
If they're pushing
crank things up.
if so, of
But so
course,
that's
yeah.
good to know. So it only affects at worst case, like you might get an
About an
extra
hour.
hour.
Yeah, yeah. They're
It
rating them
sounds
for
like.
6, and I think it's rated for when you're using both. So I think if you keep it at 50%, you could potentially keep it there, but it's a little bit harder. Like you said, audio sources could be different. And I like the fact that you can control the audio on the output device. So like the Steam Deck, I have a volume rocker. I can increase the volume there if I need to compensate a little bit. But I think overall it's a good product. And if for anybody that's listening or anybody that's interested in low latency, true connectivity, meaning you're not going to notice any delays in audio playback or anything like that. Yeah, yeah, these are a great solution. I just hope more people will try them out and see what Soundcore is trying to bring in. They're
It
definitely. I mean, there was even a third thing that they released, the sleep earbuds as well. I don't know if you. There's those as well that they got released not that long ago as well.
yeah, that's one thing I hadn't really thought about either. So a lot of the times when I plug in, like I have a second pair of uh, of the periodic audio that I have connected through a USB-C dongle. But when I plug them in using the oh god, when I plug them in, using the one of the dongles there, if I can get it to, it's gonna try to focus on my face.
Yeah, I was gonna. Oh yeah, here you go. Yeah, yeah.
Um, Depending on a lot of the times you lose your well, not with these, but with sometimes you lose your volume options
Hmm.
with certain, with your desktop, you just gotta adjust it like inside Netflix or inside YouTube or inside Apple Music or whatever, or
Whatever you're using
Spotify or
to.
whatever you're using. You have to do it inside the application. It just cranks everything to 100% or it limits it to a certain. So that's an interesting, yeah.
That's generally done because most apps, especially audio playback apps, like to control the audio output, and some like to use it in what they call is exclusive mode. And when you do put that in exclusive mode, it usually cranks it up. So essentially, is you have one control for that audio output, and it just limits where what the volume needs to be, and you can control it from one spot. I had it with my what's it called, THX Sonics and the Helm Bolt as well. When you have them in exclusive mode, your volume rocker stops working for everything. It just goes directly into the player, and there you can raise the volume. So it's a interesting approach, but yeah, prioritizing audio output.
It makes sense because they'd have their own like codecs and own um, frequency levels they want to control, and
Hmm.
if your system can control that, then it can. It'd be kind of it's kind of like if if you calibrate your monitor, but then you're
Hmm.
constantly adjusting, but then the minute you adjust the brightness, it's no longer calibrated anymore. It's kind of like, people buy a computer and they go, oh, I can do P3 and all this, but have you ever calibrated it? Like, that's the, like, and it's the same thing with the audio.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. I never thought about it like that, though, that, they would want to control it at that level versus system because system would vary. But if they can lock it in at certain rates, they know that it's going to be consistent no matter what operating
Yeah.
system, what device, and all that.
And they do it mostly just to control the DAC. So that's the way they're able to push the DAC to play higher quality audio over standard, like 1620 1644 type of an experience. So anytime you're trying to push it higher, you need to drive the hardware. And for the computer to communicate, it can't just let every program do it. It has to have that exclusive mode. But I think overall, like I said, the audio experience is there's just so many audio options, so many good audio options as far as what we're using, and wireless is coming along very nicely. I think the Liberty 4s definitely will give you better audio experience, better higher fidelity audio, but I think either or, you can't go wrong. Just you have to figure out what you want and what you're trying to get out of those, and they'll have the right pair for you. Soundcore has been knocking it out, yeah, for sure.
They have been, and Anchor,
Hmm.
being the sub brand of Anchor, and like
Oh yeah.
Eufy. I love my Eufy cameras, and like I'm digging it what they're doing, across the board with all their brands and stuff, and some of
Oh,
the
absolutely.
newer
I
stuff
can't wait
that
to
they're
see them at
doing,
CES
and
again.
man,
Hopefully,
I'm
we'll see them
hoping
again
to
this.
get to CES someday. It's just one of
Okay.
those like the cost thing, again, you have to figure out your cost of your staying out at the hotel, your flying. The
That's
flight's actually the
yeah,
cheap part for me.
it
Like
is.
it's the cheapest part of the whole thing, is the flight for me.
The
It's not the
hotels are going to be this year for some reason. Like they're doing a weird. It's almost like the casinos and the hotels. Like, oh hey, pandemic is over, but we're back into not normal pricing. We're going to go to gouging. Um, like right before CES starts, if you look at the hotel rooms, are like 110, $150. The moment CES starts, like the evening before CES, it creeps up to about 3 to 400, and the night of CES is like 5 to 6, 700. I'm like, what in like why? Like, you know what I mean? Like they know people need them, and we're like months in advance, and the prices are that high. That's just crazy. So yeah, no, I understand. Typically I try to see if I can get some sponsorships if I can. But the good thing for me is I can drive. Also, I can save a little bit of money on the airfare because it's about a 4 hour drive or so. We
that
live not too far.
that's convenient. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you got to count that in, but that also means that you might not have to go like a day or days ahead of time to try to like align your flight and your stay, and based on
I,
availability, you can just drive you
Absolutely.
know,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You could drive in the day in and then leave. I've done it in the past, not last few years, but I've done it in the past where I've had like one day at CES and I leave at like, what was it, 2 o'clock in the morning. I get there about, 6 a.m., grab breakfast, get ready, go in, do the show floor, and then finish the day and then go home. Don't even have to worry about a hotel. So it becomes very cost effective, but exhausting. But yeah, there's many things you could do, and flights are typically not as expensive. There's so many airports that fly into Vegas, and so much, like
well,
seriously, it's quick.
I'm fortunate enough that we now have, well, technically three, but two that are officially considered like international or like direct flight airports in Michigan now. It used to just
Hmm.
be Detroit, but Grand Rapids will fly direct to
Okay.
Vegas, and even Lansing does some direct to Vegas now. So I'm fortunate I don't have to drive to the other side of the state, like 2 3 hours away to Detroit. I can drive 45 minutes to Grand Rapids and fly direct to Vegas, which is kind of nice and cheaper, and also considering the fact that who's gonna be would be picking me up as my wife, and I don't want to have to trust her in that Detroit hectic. It's like a whole city there. If
Oh
anybody's
no,
ever been to
absolutely. Yeah,
Detroit,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like its own little, like, they have multiple names of roads, and it's chaos there. I've done it once and I'll never do it again. And
No,
you're fortunate
uh,
that you can, you have some of these events that you can, but then there's things that are, out this way that you got to fly to, like some of
yeah,
the New York
exactly.
stuff, and
New York stuff is
like,
usually, yeah,
and Chicago does some things, if you were gonna
Motorola
go
does
to.
Chicago. Yeah, Motorola will do some Chicago stuff, and then they'll do some New York. But typically, it's New York, San Francisco, and LA. Those are the primary main hubs for like events or kind of things to go. Chicago, I haven't been invited to Motorola yet, so I'm hoping maybe in the next round I'll be part of the crew, and we'll have to see. Maybe we'll be able to fly into and check it out. I mean, I've been to the O'Hare Airport, but I've never gone into Chicago. Like I've never actually left the airport. I've always transited through, so it'll be interesting. It'll be hopefully see the Windy City for what it does.
And I know Chicago has every once in a while they have, some versions of like Comic Con and some of that stuff that they
Oh
do,
yeah, yeah. We asked
that
San Diego for
stuff
that here.
there.
Yeah,
But
San
they do
Diego
like
Comic
mini
Con.
versions of that there too sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and other fun stuff. Um, I know for you, with your son,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it would be cool if you could do. I don't know if they're doing this anymore, but my brother took my nephew when he was little,
Mm-hmm.
to the Chicago, like the aquarium there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
And what was interesting is at the time they had a deal where you could take the train from Michigan. You'd take that,
All the way.
down and over
Mm-hmm.
to Chicago, and they had some deal going on with Amtrak where you took the train and you had your ticket to go visit that, and I think the Chicago Zoo. And it was like $25 a piece, and I was like, "How did they do that?" Like, because
I was
that's
like,
usually, I was like, "How did they?" There was
that's like
some deal that
the
they
price of
had.
admission. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
it must be some. Okay, yeah. That's like
Yeah,
that
some
is
deal.
crazy
So,
cheap.
if you
Yeah.
ever like ended up this way and you're like, "Hey, I wanna, go check this out," I'd be curious to see if they're still doing those deals. But that would be a heck of a deal, even if you had to like, I don't know, train or fly or something, up
Oh
your
no,
way this way
we
to
haven't
get
done
something like that
train.
would
Yeah,
be.
my son hasn't done long train trips yet. We don't have, unfortunately, on the West Coast, we don't have a lot of places to go in trains. I mean, we have a very small metro system here, but even going to train, they're trying to build a train, a direct route from LA to Vegas by train. And honestly, in future events, I would rather take the train over to Vegas than so I don't have to worry about driving. And I'm hoping the pricing will be a little bit more competitive to flying because, you could just relax, get on it, and we have a train station not too far. But yeah, no, no, I think it would be nice to check it out. He's a little bit older now. He's like around 13, so zoos unfortunately are not his interest anymore. But Comic Con or comic book conventions, I'm pretty sure I couldn't even stop him from. He'll drag me there. So we're getting to that level.
Yeah, the zoo might not be as interesting. The aquarium side though, when they do their special, where sometimes they'll have certain like fish and things there that they don't have at others. That might
Hmm.
be something that might spark his
We'll
interest.
have.
They have like freshwater versions of like sharks and things like that they do, and
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. He
there's
likes
all sorts
sharks.
of
He's not too
and
old.
the
He's
eels
not.
and some of the
Yeah, yeah.
some of the fun stuff might be, or like the animals that are related to dinosaurs and things like that might spark.
Well,
Yeah.
Juan and I took him with us a couple, not a couple of months, about a month and a half ago or so, to the Natural History Museum here in LA, and then we also did the Peterson Museum, the car museum here in Los Angeles. So I try to bring him with me as much as possible. He's getting more interested into photography, and as you know, he has. I don't know if you've heard, but he has like the Pixel 5a now. So hopefully, he's bugging me to take the Pixel 6a off with me. I'm like, dude, I can't, not yet. Your 5a is still
Wait
good.
until the 7A's out and then
Uh,
maybe.
yeah, maybe when the 7A comes in, you'll be upgraded. I feel like the 5A is still more than capable. But yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
always fun, and he's, they get older fast, so watch out before you know
I
it.
mean the 5A was great. It was basically the 5 but just like
Bigger. Yeah,
bigger, and then the display
yeah.
um
It was just that they dropped
was
it as opposed to being high refresh rate. It was just 60 hertz, but it's still
yeah,
it
but
boots
everything
Android.
else,
Yeah, I know.
and even the processor, because the 5 had the 765, and the
Yep, yep.
5A they went with the it
The
was one of the
760.
weird, where they did the same thing, and that I think that was a sign to Google, that that's what they were going to do with the A line, is use the
Yeah.
same thing in the regular. Now that they have the tensor, I'll be curious to see though. Do you think Google will do like at some point they'll basically be like tensor 3, pixel 8 or whatever, and
Mhm.
then the 7, and then like the 8A will just use the previous generation, that they'll ever switch over to doing that instead, to try to, as opposed to having them use the same.
The same
because when
SoC. Yeah.
because when they started, they didn't really have a choice. If you're gonna use, because you only have one model, so if you're gonna use the tensor in both, you kind of, or you had to, or they'd have to wait like a year and a half, to go
Yep.
from the 5A to the. Do you think that you'll see them do that? Like
It
the
would
A
be,
line will just.
I mean, it would save them tons of money. I think that would be the smart thing to do. The only concern I would probably say is how much stock they have of the previous generation of the Tensor. So you have to remember, most of the time, what ends up happening is they have leftover hardware from when they built the first two. So right, the seven, the six, and the six Pro, they had all those Tensor chips, and then when they went into the 6A, it's almost like they're finalizing, closing out all of their chips. So they'll make the 6A. They know the 6A will sell, and then by the time they get into the 7, their factory stopped producing that first generation of the tensor, right? They're just focusing on the tensor 2.
Oh
They'll
yeah.
reduce the numbers, so it's a little bit hard for them to continue it. I would say it'll save them a lot of money, but utilizing the same chip also saves them money because it extends the lifespan of that chip, right? Because the 6A just got released and we're using the same tensor as last year, but as you saw, or probably heard from the unveiling event, that the tablet's going to be using Tensor 2, because again, you're right. So their factories are focusing primarily making new SoCs, and the older one, they know at some point the demand will start dropping, and it'll end up being basically whatever hardware is at carriers or stores that basically will keep them afloat till the next generation comes out. So it's a decent experience. I think Apple did it well. Google's learning from it, and it makes perfect sense. And I think we'll benefit on the A series for sure because you're getting flagship experience at an affordable price. Very, very few. I mean, if you compare the SE to the A series, the A series is definitely a much better deal.
Oh yeah. And I think, yeah, I didn't think about that too, because like, to continue to produce the old, if it costs like $5 difference,
Hmm.
they're just going to spend the $5 more, and then the A line is like, oh, we need to sell this, and not, and even if it's at a lower price point than the 7 and 7 Pro, when the 7A comes out, they sell the
Hmm.
Tensor 2 with it. They're still getting more than it costs them to make it, because I mean, if my 14 Pro Max, like a loaded out 14 Pro Max, it's a little bit more this year, but like um Pro Max, like fully loaded out top end one, used to cost them like 400 and some dollars to manufacture, including
Hmm.
the crazy amount of storage. And when they started offering 1 terabyte models, it was a little bit more. Um,
Yeah.
one thing one thing that was interesting with the discussion, and kind of, I guess, why they kept the like old, A15 chip for the 14 and the 14 Plus, was that it cost them it cost them apparently, it was like $120 more to put the A16 chip in. So that, if you consider it's $100 to go from the 14 Plus to the 14 Pro,
Hmm.
that there's actually a slight, why they want people to buy more storage, is that actually they're making less on the 14 Pro than the 14 Plus because of that difference,
Oh,
essentially, because
okay.
and and because it costs them $120 more to make, but they're only selling it for $100 more, which Apple could have easily been like, you know what, we're just going to put the same chip in everything, and every phone's bumped up $200 more this year because it cost us, $120 more to make, and then they
But
could have, and then
yeah.
what I would like to see, just even with like the Pixel, would be interesting to see, is like an increase in starting storage capacity. So
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
256 on the Pro. I mean,
I feel like
we used to see
256.
the day
Yeah.
we used to see the days, where the lower end devices were like, you'd have 16 gigs on some of the device, and then you'd have like 32 gigs on the higher end, and then it jumped up to, 32 gigs and 64, and then 64 and 128. Like Apple still sells 64 gigs on their base iPads, and then their professional levels you get to 128. But phones are, I feel like that could be a distinguishing difference, and for me,
Hmm.
a valid selling, like, if you're gonna pay $200-300 more to go to a pro device, if they can just, because it costs them like what, $20 more or whatever to go from 128 to 256, and a lot of the features are tied into, on the iPhone side in particular, are tied into that. Like you still can't record um like the ProRes stuff, and
Oh
some of
yeah.
that that's limited. You have to have 256 gig or more because I mean you can
Well, because
record
of
it
the
at the
yeah.
lower end because of storage. So if they're going to offer that feature, they should just bump it up, and even if that means the price point is different, I feel like that would be more of a distinguishing, especially because they got rid of the mini, so
Hmm.
now it is $100. When you had the
Well, they
mini and
kept
the
the 13
regular
mini.
and the Pro Max,
Yeah.
there was a $200, but because they put the plus rate in between, now it's $100. From the regular line to the Pro line, um,
And
and
I think they should have done the Plus a
the
long time ago. By the way, I think
I
the fact that you needed to buy the Pro Plus, the Pro Max, just to get the larger display, was always a such a big jump for people, especially people that wanted the larger display but don't necessarily want the Pro line. So that was actually a nice surprise in my opinion this year. But it did. You're right. It kind of made it into a stepping stone on the price scale. The 13 mini is still technically around, although then you can go to the 14, 14 Pro, sorry, 14 Plus, 14 Pro, and then 14 Pro Max. They're doing the stepping stone, but there's also the factor of cost, right? At the end of the day, Apple wants to give options for everybody, and they're trying to expand their lineup without necessarily improving everything. So some things were, like you said, cost benefit. It would have made more sense everything to use the same SoC. But you're right, they have to make the price make sense, and people are going to start having issues if the price keeps creeping up. I think Google did it very nicely. They
it's
stuck to the same price point, so that's a good one. But storage needs to expand. You're right. We need more storage, and sadly, it's becoming more apparent to a lot of us now.
it's like when they did the they dropped the base iPhone price by $50,
Hmm.
and then Samsung came in like and did the same thing kind of like a year later. They dropped it down, and then and then when they introduced more models, and they bump and so you get that, where it's on either side of it.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's all in our heads, and that's like the one thing that I've noticed. So you've been using the Pixel for
It's a little bit
what, a
over a
couple
week now. Yeah,
over a week now,
Yeah,
and
yeah. We
one of the
got we
things
got our
that
boxes
people
the day after or no, the same day as the launch, or not the launch. I would call it the embargo, but essentially, yeah, we got them the same day. It was a lot of other people were pushing out their videos, so we got them a little bit late. But yeah, it's about a week now, and I like it. I like the 7 Pro is really nice.
one of the things that I see people talk about, and even I had this thought for a little bit, was $300 price difference. And last year I got the 6 instead of the 6 Pro because I was like, well, you know, 120 hertz versus 90 hertz isn't, am I going to even really notice the difference? And then I thought about it later, and I was thinking only really if you're doing a lot of stuff that would take advantage of like LTPO technology, where
Hmm.
that might improve battery life. Like if you're doing a lot of scrolling a lot, and but then if you're scrolling a lot, it's going to be constantly running at 120. So like maybe if you're watching a lot of lower, like 30 frame per second video, because it can jump down versus
Hmm.
being locked at like locked in at a 60 or a 90 all the time on other.
Yeah.
And then like if you're using telephoto, but this year, your telephoto is further out, so a simple crop on the regular, yeah, they did a really good job with that, but it's still not quite the same. And then the macro mode in there, and I feel like some of the things they're starting to distinguish, and even the 7 has a smaller battery than the 6 did, and they went slightly smaller on the device. So I think they're distinguishing their lines more and more. And then people are comparing them to other things. It's like, well, you can't do that. You have two devices here versus, 3 or 4. If you're trying to compare to like the iPhone at those
Oh
price
yeah.
ranges, or even like Samsung at those price ranges. Well, Apple has different sizes in there, and they have their regular versus like their Pro line, and that's kind of what. But Samsung, and Samsung has that too. But Google kind of decided, you know what, we're gonna have the regular and we're gonna have the Pro, and they're gonna be two different screen sizes, and you're still gonna get a decent refresh rate
Hmm.
on the low end ones. If you want to do some gaming and you're getting, frames that are higher than 60 frames per second, and the games take advantage of that, you're gonna have that in there. You're
Yeah.
still gonna get the extra smooth scrolling. You don't get the, which I've always wondered about. They can bump the refresh rate down with 120, and
Hmm.
like my Apple Watch can go down. That's not, I'm not wearing my Apple Watch, but my watch can go down, can lower down, and they've been able to do that where they can lower down to like 1 hertz.
Yeah.
But on tablets, oh, and computers do it too, but like, or some monitors lower down. But why they haven't decided to implement into um, non like the lower refresh rate devices to take
So
advantage and improve that battery life. Give me a 30 frame per second option if you're gonna do it,
I,
so
I
when I am watching video, it's not stuck.
so most applications are optimized to run at 60 frames per second. Some are optimized, like the camera apps. They'll typically run at 30 frames per second because they don't need to refresh a lot. It's more a lot of static imagery. Uh, so if you think about it, between the two, between 6 and the 6 Pro, even the 7 and the 7 Pro, the 6 model has a much higher bump in performance when you go from 60 to 90. That's a 50% performance increase. When you go from 90 to 120, it's a much lower right. We're going basically another 30 frames per second. It's more like 33%. So you're dropping
Yeah.
in the gain. I think 90 is the sweet spot for most people that'll enjoy better, smoother scrolling. But the adaptive kind of also falls back on the display. So if they're not using higher quality displays, like you're going with LTPO and so on, it's a little bit harder for them, and it also taxes the system. So having it consistently trying to figure out what refresh rate is running, the processor runs longer or harder, and of course, as you said yourself, the battery on this one's a little bit lower. Not a lot, but it is noticeable that it's not the same size. I mean, they went a little bit more. I guess they're leveraging the second generation tensor a little bit more on this one. But I haven't really seen a lot of people complain about battery life on Pixel, even the
No.
7 or the
It's
7 Pro. They've been doing
only
well.
it's only like was it like 120 some, it's like 120 milliamp hours less. It's not like when you're at that size, yeah,
Hmm.
but that's like 8% or something like that. So it's not,
Oh, right. And,
and
and
then
they
you have
kept the
the
price,
more
and the price
efficient
stayed the
chip.
same. No, no, absolutely,
So,
absolutely. And you have to keep in mind
and
the price points stayed the same. You're leveraging, newer tech, newer information, newer content, and so on, and you're still getting the same price as the one from last year. I don't know if they'll be able to keep it next year, but we'll have to see. Inflation's hitting
and
a lot of pieces of tech lately, so that's getting a little bit tricky. We'll see.
well, and the fact that they're doing like, the iPhones went up substantially higher like
Hmm.
overseas, but
Oh, iPads as well. Yeah.
Google kept theirs like fairly well balanced. Like, you're seeing like what's like euro, like technically if you converted for the euro,
Hmm.
the 599 price point in some of these countries, it should be almost near 800, like euros, as far as like when you convert and all that, because the dollar being, but it's only, was it 649, I think is what I saw. Like,
Hmm.
so they're not even, so they're actually taking a slight loss going in other countries, like if you do the conversion, for what it sells for the dollar here versus, and like the same thing, like it's in India now, and
Hmm.
they're
That's true.
expanding more, and so they're taking a loss in some of these countries. So the fact that it didn't bump up in the U.S. and they're taking a, but Google, they're getting information. They're um, right now just getting it into more people's hands so that
Yeah,
they get that the advertising from
and that's
seeing
the
that out
biggest
and
thing.
about
Yes,
and available in
that's
more countries. The fact that
exactly.
it's available on every carrier is a huge thing, and like deals on every carrier
Hmm.
is
Yeah, yeah.
huge to me, because like in the past sometimes it's like, yeah, you can get it on another carrier, but you got to buy the unlocked, and so it's not
Hmm.
really on the carrier, and so you didn't get the deals. But the fact that it's on all the carriers
I think T-Mobile's
available.
given it yeah, if you subscribe to T-Mobile and you get a specific plan with them, you get the 7 Pro for free. Like, they're I think they learned a lot from last year's marketing campaign they did with the 6 and 6 Pro. This is where Google's PR and advertising department decided to wake up and start advertising like heavily, and they're seeing the benefit of that. People are responding quite well, and again, for the fact that iPhones may have better video, most of us don't shoot video. Most of us shoot pictures. Like, as a parent, I know I take videos of my son, but I would say it's like a like if I had to break up my time, it's like 90% of the time I'm taking images of him. I'm not taking videos. And there's those few certain circumstances where I need to take video. And I think those are the things that we kind of need to leverage. Google is, I mean, they have de facto one of the best cameras on the market, and people are noticing. So I think Pixel is picking up. And like you said, they may need to eat a little bit of loss on the price, but they get it in more people's hands, and it helps them in the long run. I think it's a right move for them, and we've seen many companies do that before. They sell at a loss. I mean, and I'm sure they're not losing. By the way,
No.
cost of making the hardware and how much they're selling it, there is no law. It's more about recouping the R&D, recouping the advertising, recouping all this, the other expenses that come along with selling a device. Those things usually will come. Yeah, they're going to make it up, as you said, data, information, so on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other sectors of Google's or Alphabet that will definitely benefit from us having Pixels, of course.
I mean, apart from Sony selling the PlayStation and Microsoft selling the Xbox, they're taking loss on their hardware because you know that it costs them. But apart from that, like,
Uh,
Google, I shouldn't. I guess we would say they're not selling it at a loss, but they're not selling it as much of a profit as like past, and then of course
yeah,
in other countries as much as here necessarily because there's some of
there's the
those
cost
shifts in.
conversion. You're right. The euro. This is a weird time. I mean, for the longest time, the British pound and the euro were always ahead of us, and we always kind of leverage. They always seemed like they're getting a better deal, but yeah, now it's a little bit different. But um, maybe the market will course correct at some point, and then I think the price point will start coming down. But it's a good move for them. I'm happy that they're still able to do it for the 599 and the 899 starting price points.
And one of the
It's
things that
good.
amazes me is like
Yeah.
the minute that they dropped that A line, I thought that that was shooting themselves in the foot. Not the 5A, but the 6A by using the same processor because somebody could just be like, well, if I want all those features, but I don't necessarily need 90 hertz and I don't necessarily need the telephoto, then I can just be on the A line and then I'll
Makes
just wait
sense.
until the 7A and you get the same processor.
Exactly. Yeah,
But
yeah, no.
Google's still getting your money either way, so what do they care, right? Like that's
No,
the
no,
thing.
no.
At first, I thought about like for, like if they only had the 7 and 7 Pro and never did like this, and you never had the A line. Well,
Yeah.
then if you want a Pixel, your choice is those price points.
Yeah.
But
No,
on
no.
the other hand, like you said, the fact that it's 6 months later, if they just have all those chips sitting around, it doesn't do them any good. So for them to sell that at $150 less, they're still making 450 bucks off from it or whatever, and then carrier deals, whatever, the carriers get you locked,
Oh,
they pay for it, and then Google still gets
absolutely.
that amount of money, and then the carriers get you locked in a certain, but it's brilliant. And it brings you in, and like you said, you're getting a, I would say, better value than any other company that does anything like that. Like,
Yeah, and they don't have to depend on Qualcomm's technology. So there's, for them, in-house software development optimizations. They're just working towards one SKU, so it's the same processor on both ends. This is why all the benefits they did and all the development they did to fix the concerns and issues that the 6 and 6 Pro had at the launch as part of the life cycle. By the time the 6A came in, it was just nice, smooth cruising. You were in there. I mean, and we got Android 13 literally like not even a week after getting it, so it was. From a setup point and sustainability and control, it works absolutely in Google's favor to do it the way they did it. I think that's the right way to do it.
and
And
anybody who had issues last year with like the 6 and 6 Pro,
yeah,
when
yeah,
the 6A came out and they kind of refined that software, it was Google's opportunity to say, "Oh, we fixed it now," and then catch some people that might have held off or returned, and they're
absolutely.
like, "Well, I'm willing to try it again," and now it's at a lower price point. So if I, so you know, I'm not having to go full in at that price again, knowing that like 6 months from now, the 7 and 7 Pro are coming out, and so you get those opportunities from people and people that just don't want to spend that much.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
Or
there's an option for
although
everybody.
that crazy good deal that Mint Mobile had, that's now not showing on their site, but they had the 7 Pro for 499, and you could get a
Oh,
year of unlimited service for 180 on top of it because they had if you paid for 6 months, they would double it.
okay,
And
okay.
they
So you get
had
it
it
for four
at the
ninety,
fifth.
and you
They
get a
had it
six.
at they had it at the $15 a month instead of the $30 for the unlimited.
Hmm.
So you were paying 180 bucks, but because they for 6 months,
Hmm.
but because they doubled that essentially instead of being $30, it's $15 a month. So you could pay $649 and get the 7 Pro
In a year
and a
service.
full year of unlimited, on T-Mobile Towers Mint service
Nice.
and
No,
be
no,
good to
I
go.
didn't
And
even
then
know about
after
that one.
that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then after that year, if you don't want the Mint Mobile service anymore, you have a Pixel that's
Yeah, I'm
unlocked
pretty
that
sure you
you could
could.
go turn around and use on your carrier. So, or if you're using it as a second device, or I felt like for people reviewing,
Hmm. No, that's
you
it.
have a line
Mint's
with
been
it
doing
now.
really good.
So
Yeah, I
that's
don't know if I don't think Juan uses Mint. I'm not sure if Juan's using Mint or another MVMO, but yeah, I think it's a good option. And I didn't know. I wish I did. I knew about that one, but uh, that's the thing. Google's leveraging a lot of collaborations and working with a lot of carriers, getting out right and getting it to people's hands is the big thing. And I think they're doing a good job there.
Juan says he's still on Mint.
Yeah. Well,
So
I always bug them.
I have
Yes.
some questions for you that we never really got into. We were just talking. So, real quick, I guess
Sure.
what got you into tech? Is there like something
Oh.
that like specifically got you into it? Like me, it was my grandpa.
For me, it wasn't a person. I mean, well, I mean, it could have been a person. It was my neighbor. So where I grew up in Lebanon when I was a kid, my neighbor on the third floor, we lived in an apartment building, got a Commodore 64, and the building was a buzz. So I was super excited about what you could do with magnetic tapes at the time, and what a computer can do, the keyboard and mouse experience. And it was kind of gaming too, because that's what they were leveraging. They were playing a lot of games on it. And that was kind of like my first exposure, my first like, oh, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, that's very nice, cool toy. And then that kind of got me into the beginning of computers and what to do. And I started looking into Atom computers, even earlier generations of that. But what bummed me out is my mom actually couldn't afford a Commodore at the time, so she got me an Amiga, the Atari 2600. So like the one, remember the cartridge with the pigs in space and all of that. So from that time, like when I was around, oh man, like this was in the 80s, by the way. Obviously, we're talking 80s, really long time ago. Um, that's what got me into tech. And then when I first moved here, started building computers, wanted to learn more about building computers, how computers work. I built up my first 386 DX with 2 gigs of RAM, ran Windows 3.1 with DOS. So, and it's been a gradual evolutionary step. Every single time something comes out, I learn, I try, I improve. And phones are pretty much computers, as we all know. So it was an easy transition for me. But that's how it kind of all started with an Amiga, with a Commodore 64 from the old days.
And I realized my next question was redundant because I was going to say, what was your first memorable experience with tech? Well, that would be the same thing. So,
Oh yeah, yeah, no, no,
you know,
absolutely. It was gaming. It was computer, command prompt, control, and back then, it was really very interesting for me because it used magnetic tapes, right? So the cassettes looked very similar to cassettes, regular music cassettes, and you would just load the content into the computer and boot it up and run it. So, yeah, it was a very interesting, very different, and it spoke to me directly. That's kind of a weird thing. Like when something speaks to you, like if you love something, it comes up, and so it's been a love relationship for quite some time, and we're here, we're talking on computers. That's
we
make
are
it make it
over like wireless connections or
wired
wired. I
connection
mean, I'm
across country.
wireless because my router's right behind me, and I actually get better. My Wi-Fi card is better than my wired for some,
Oh yeah, yeah,
so I use that, and the fact that my camera's connected over the things that it is and doing all
yeah.
this, and you have the delays and stuff. That's so improved, that it just amazes me that we're doing this, and then and then some cable companies use satellites to
Yep. No,
do
no.
some of their connections and
A
stuff,
lot of their
and
connection, and then they split it out. Yeah, no, I know, and it's nice to see that there's internet connection in rural areas, like you said, with satellite connectivity and so on. So it's a better connected world. Let's just say this. And I've gone through the pain and the advancement of technology when it came to 14.44 modems, 56K, going up to ADSL, SDSL, and then getting into normal broadband. And I'm just waiting to see when Google's going to provide fiber in my area, because I'd love to be able to jump on a fiber connection. But it's good. I I love the fact that it's something I'm still able to enjoy and make it a good hobby for myself, because it's not my day job, but it's something that I'm really passionate about. As you can imagine, 12 years doing it's pretty good.
And I know you have to get going soon to pick up your son in a couple minutes here. So
Yeah,
quick fire. What do you do
sure.
when you're not making content, like your day to job?
Uh, I can okay. So all I can say is I work in finance.
Okay. I mean, I
Unfortunately, yeah,
obviously, yeah, I'm not like expecting you to, but I was just curious, like what you do,
yeah,
because
yeah.
there's some creators that literally creating is what they do as their like, all the time,
Yeah, I
and
wish.
I know you do a lot of like I know you've done some writing and you've worked with XDA forums and
Oh
you've
yeah.
and I know, like I recall you and Juan from. I was actually talking to my wife about this. I was like, I remember back in the days when like CNET and ZDNet, and
Hmm.
like they had like people that would write for them, and then YouTube didn't exist, so video clips were on their site. And like I remember you guys from like forum days and reading articles by you guys. So like seeing you guys in video and being able to like talk to both of you and having done this is just, it's like giddy to me, in a way. I know,
No, no, no. It is.
it's
It's
amazing.
amazing.
Like,
Exactly. No, no. And it kind of for me all started with it was just a simple request from XDA was looking for a host, and I applied, and they they helped me a lot. But yeah, prior to that, you're right. In the forums, I actually managed a couple of forums internally to XDA with unboxings and so on for a while. And ROM development, building, just it's a fun it's so fun that you're willing to do it on your spare time and dedicate your own time to do it. That's how nice it is, and I think that's the appreciation and the big part of why I like the XDA, and worked with them for almost 12 years. Yeah, for very nice. Actually, yeah, almost like the end of last year. That's where I was still a creator and contributor over on XDA. But I have a great admiration for that team, for the site, and what they present. And yeah, I can't wait to see what they do. So, but yeah, dude, nice to see you and chat. And definitely, we usually are mostly in conversations during the time when
mhm.
we're doing our stuff.
I'm I'm usually harassing you guys trying to see if I can get Juan to smirk or laugh or like I can
That's
tell that he's read one of my comments in one of your
yeah,
guys' live stream because I see that little,
that
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
the little.
Telltale sign. Absolutely.
So, so one question that I always like to ask,
Sure.
is least favorite tech or something you regret buying, because I'm
Ooh.
always intrigued, like because I feel like we always have that, like we bought something, we thought it was gonna be awesome, and then we get it and it turns out it was just like
Oh man.
devastatingly a bummer. Or I guess on the other aspect, along with the lines of that, was like tech that surprised you. So regret could be like it surprised you in a bad way, and if you don't have
Uh-huh.
something on that, I would say maybe you got it and it surprised you in a like an overwhelmingly good way. So we can go one way or the other
Uh,
depending on what direction you have with that.
a lot of the tech that I use always surprises me in a good way. But it typically, like, there's a few things that I've ever bought that I felt um like, why did I even believe that this was going to actually work? It's going to sound weird, but there was a Kickstarter campaign going for something called CarDroid. It was an implementation of Android Auto on, but basically running it as over a dongle. So they leveraged basically almost like a car PC software, where you're able to basically watch YouTube videos, connect, download applications from the Google Play Store, and it interfaced with your car over Android Auto because of the interface that they had in there. They promised a lot, and I got it, and it updated, but then it had a lot of issues. So that would, to me, was my biggest regret ever backing as a project, because most projects typically do some good. Their biggest issue was GPS. They were leveraging GPS connection over your smartphone, and they never finalized the design. So when they sent the early units, that design wasn't fixed, and the later on units were fixed. So I ended up being part of the early batch, and so that, long story short, I'm early adopter, a little bit of a buyer's remorse at the time, but that would have been my only thing. And then as far as like the most surprising piece of tech, oh man, so many different things. I would probably say, like, just the smartwatch. Where we are now with smartwatches and what we could do. I think it's not one unit, but in general, smartwatches are becoming very good. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I'm gonna say two, but like, gonna go there. But for me, it's been mostly just how smartwatches have been so integral now to my experience for smartphones. I no longer consider buying regular old, like typical watches. I love having smartwatches and leveraging compute power and interacting with the system, responding to messages, and multitasking. So I love that.
It's a piece of tech
Hmm.
that where most of us, we use our smartphones to take photos and answer emails and do
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
but is it something that really like substantially changes our life or like can help us better with health or even like for me the smartwatch and actually I can't remember the exact topic, but when I had Juan on when I was doing this and I was called creator interviews, our topic of discussion was focusing on how technology in a lot of ways can be like harmful to your way of living and like distracting and
Hmm.
how I felt like a smartwatch sometimes it makes it worse because you're being constantly notified it's on your arm,
Yeah, yeah.
and so even when your phone's away from you or in your pocket it's constantly there and you're having like this nervous like do I look at it or but on the other hand it's like you can look at it and then just be like, well, I can ignore that. It's not important. Or, oh, I really need to. My wife sent me a 911 message. Obviously, it means I need to,
Stop
reply
what
to
you're
it. Or,
doing and get out and
so,
go do whatever. Yeah, exactly.
and you can just naturally look at it like you're checking the time and nobody has to know that you're looking to see, like, is this
You're
message or
checking messages.
notification came
Oh yeah.
in, important or crucial. And you can always take it off, obviously, and, you know,
Well, there's do not disturb. That's the other thing.
and
The
do not
improvements that we're
disturb
seeing now,
and
yeah, like
in
night
the way
mode, do
that
not
that
disturb.
links up and that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
one of the things that I saw that was the criticism, with the Pixel Watch was not syncing the some of the stuff with like do not disturb or if you turned it on your watch it wouldn't turn on the Pixel or you turned it on your Pixel and it wasn't. So that's interesting to see like the difference in perspective. And that's just a learning thing too. That's
Yeah.
just like a software update could fix that.
Oh
Um
yeah, absolutely. A lot of our hardware, when we get them, they're in dire need of at least one, maybe two software updates to get the formula right.
Well, I have officially kept you past when I said I would keep you till. TK, I appreciate you. I thank you so much for being a part of this journey, this exploration, this experience, this series.
Hmm.
You are my last guest of this series until the new year. I will
Oh,
be having Ike back on next week, and I will be having guests here and there.
okay.
Um, but with holidays coming up, we're getting towards the end of this month, so Halloween will be coming up, and then of course
Oh
we'll have,
yeah, man.
we'll have like
Halloween,
Thanksgiving and then
Thanksgiving,
Christmas and
Christmas.
all this
Yeah, I
stuff,
know.
and it's getting into the time of the year where people are busier, they're doing family stuff. Just I wanted to kind of keep it at a good solid number where I knew I could kind of get week after week after week and keep that consistent. So you're my eighth guest, a great wrap up to this series. The series will, like I said, will continue after the new year.
Okay.
And I appreciate you for coming on. I hope you had a good time, enjoyed yourself.
Absolutely.
And are you guys doing best of our week tonight, or you had a
Yeah.
Monday? You kind of are
Uh,
been dual, or are you dueling each time now? Because
so for the
I
next
know
three
you.
weekends, unfortunately, Omar has swim meets. So unfortunately, yeah, I'm going to be doubling Android Bay and Best of Our Week together. And Juan's now streaming his SGGQA to the Best of Our Week channel. So the Best of Our Week is kind of becoming our hub. Although I'm still broadcasting to the Android Bay channel, I just the timing I'm still
So
running
you
it at least for the next few weeks
okay?
on Thursday nights. Yeah,
So you
so we should be on.
guys, okay, cool. Because I
Yeah,
was like, I saw his was going to best of our week, and then I know you've been dual, and sometimes you guys have done like Monday as best of our week. Sometimes it's been Friday if you guys couldn't. So I just wanted to check so I could send. So anybody who's watching, anybody who's listening between now and about 2 hours from now,
yeah, just a
um,
little over 2 hours exactly.
my lovely guest, and I guess I could say my chat tormentor for today, Juan, they will be co-hosting the best of our week at around usually it's 11:15 Eastern Standard Time,
Just about,
give
yeah.
or take. And links to TK's channel. I have your TK Bay, I have the Android Bay, and of course the best of our week are all in the
Absolutely.
description below. So if you don't know where to find him, and you're listening to this, you have no excuse. Just click down below there. And with that being said, I guess this was a fun opportunity. Episode 8 Behind the Minds. We got to get a little bit behind the mind of TK, get a little insight. I got to learn some stuff about audio, got to learn some stuff about you and kind of how you got into it. And of
Yeah.
course, time is never time enough.
No.
And
Always, yeah.
and that's why I feel like doing this and then kind of doing an expanded series and inviting people back to do, more focused discussions, is something that I'll be looking forward to doing. So if you're ever willing to come on again, of course, you're always invited back.
Thank you.
Um, and
Yeah,
everybody
I'm
in the
starting
chat,
to get
thanks
the
for
text
coming
message.
on.
Yeah,
And if you're not subscribed to TK, you should be. If you're not subscribed to this, do
it
all the
should be.
things, hit the like, hit all that, and peace out, everybody.